And happy 4th of July, PSWs. It is Friday, July 4th. And we are here again yet for the PSW podcast. My name is Miranda Romanowicz. I'm the CEO and host of PSW Podcast. And I'm also the CEO of the Ontario PSW Association. And we come to you guys here live every single Friday at 11 a.m. to talk about issues pertaining to the personal support worker and to kind of bring light to all of those issues and maybe talk a little bit frank and not so hidden. We believe that by speaking about the truth and speaking with transparency and things that are actually happening, then maybe we can actually enact change. Today, I'm joined by Nicole Crawford, who is my Director of Operations at OPSWA and also a fellow personal support worker. And we're going to get started. So last week, our COO, Ian De Silva, and I spoke about ratios in long-term care facilities. What we didn't expect is how this video, Nicole, blew up like we couldn't believe, and how it really related and really made an
Resonated.
impact. Yeah,
It
for
resonated.
personal support workers, it resonated
Yep,
big time with
yep.
PSWs. And so we thought today, we're talking about workplace situations and how to handle them. Now, I've been a personal support worker almost for 20 years. 20 years ago, I was in school to become a PSW. Nicole, how long have you been a personal support worker?
I started my course in 2012, so
Yeah, it's been,
13
been a
it's
long time.
it's going on 14 years now and across all sectors. So I've
Yeah,
seen it
me
all.
too as well. Yep. Me too as well. I mean, I worked in long-term care primarily. That was my jive. That's where I like to belong, was in
Yeah.
long-term care. That's where I felt that I made the most impact, was in long-term care and in the hospital settings. Home care for me was definitely not my jive. I enjoyed
Yeah.
it, but it was too slow for my liking. But there's PSWs out there that rock home care and
Oh,
rock
yeah.
retirement homes and just do a phenomenal job at both.
Yeah. Some people just you gotta find your niche, right? That's why I didn't know what I wanted to do. So it was try my hand at every kind of thing that I could do and see what I was just like passionate about. And it was hard because I kind of love aspects of everything. Did I love going to one building for the entire day and then leaving and going home? Yeah. Did I love going to people's homes? Yeah. Bad weather? No. So I mean, they all have their pros and cons. And I mean, as long as you're doing what you set out to do and that's care for the people that you're assigned to care for, you've already done your job, you
Amen.
know? Yep.
Amen.
Yep.
So, I mean, ratios is obviously something you and I could talk about. Ian and I talked about it last week. We both
Yeah.
experienced working short staff. That's all I ever experienced, was working
Yep.
short staff. But the next thing to talk about in the workplace that we think is very pertinent and important to add on to the ratio conversation, of course, is bullying in the workplace amongst PSWs, managers, supervisors, DOCs to PSWs. Unfortunately, between nurses and PSWs, and the list
Yep.
goes on and on.
Families. Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
it's the unfortunate part of it. And it's kind of that hidden thing that people don't want to talk about or scared to talk about. There's not enough people that speak up about it because they're scared to lose their job or they're scared to get reprimanded or whatever the case may be. And you have to come to that realization that what is more important, you, your career, your life, your stress load, or the people that you work for.
mhm.
It's such a very touchy, tough subject to talk about, but it's unfortunately it's out there too much.
The
You
reality.
see the reality of it, you see it too often, and the crazy thing about it is that I can even remember it right from as I when I was a student,
Yeah.
which is sad because
Yeah.
when you're going into these long-term care homes to do your placement, you're expected to go in there and get absorbed in it and learn, get that hands-on experience. And I'll never forget my first time walking into that long-term care home and being brought up to the floor and seeing some of these PSWs, they scattered like spiders on a spider web. I mean, they could not get away from the students quicker, and it kind of just showed you like those are not the ones that you want to be attached to, because they don't want anything to do with the students, because they don't want to show you the right way of doing things, or they don't want to be responsible for that. And the talking behind your back or this or that, and it's like, I'm a student. It's crazy that you're exposed to that so early on, but
Yeah.
you got to rise above it. You've got to be stronger than that, especially being a PSW. And I say that to everybody. It's not for the faint of heart, mentally, physically, emotionally. I mean, it's not. And if you
No, it
have
isn't.
those reservations,
Yeah. Yeah.
don't do it.
Oh, and you know what kind of sets me back, I guess is a good way to put it, is and I said this in last week's webinar as well, is when PSWs come forward with complaints to the association about their workplace, about bullying that's occurring and so on and so forth, and then we ask them to provide us with proof, and they're happy to talk to us over the phone
Yeah,
and give us that sort of proof, which is
yeah,
verbal, but they're not willing to give the written. And I don't think, and I've been in many different industries in my life, my adult life, and
yeah,
I don't think I have ever been in an industry where the front line of healthcare is that petrified to
yeah,
report things in their workplace. And where this is a conversation, Nicole, like OPSWA's been 15 years we've been with OPSWA. And in 15 years, nothing has changed when it comes to bullying in healthcare. And I find that the worst place for it, and I'm going to throw them under the bus here, is
yeah.
long-term care.
Long-term care.
Long-term care is the absolute worst place. And I get it. I remember back in the day when I graduated and I had the same similar situation to you. I was fortunate to have a preceptor that was really eager to work with the students. But when I got into working in long-term care, I remember that I had to do a shift on each shift
Yeah,
basically. And
yeah,
I remember the morning shift, and it was, I mean, they put me on the wing that had the heaviest residents.
yeah,
My partner was nowhere to be found. I'm 5'2" on a good day, and I was trying to wrangle this 6'5" guy out of bed who was rigid. He had unfortunately urinated in his bed. There was a puddle of it because it was one of those air mattresses.
yeah.
And I'm trying to get him out there to get him over to breakfast. He was my last resident. I thought I was doing okay. I was about 15 minutes late, and my partner came in. She was an old healthcare aide, and she ripped a strip off me because I wasn't fast enough. And I thought to myself, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah,
Like I went home and I cried after that situation because I was like,
yeah,
I hate this. But then I started afternoon shifts and where I found my vibe and I found my kind
yeah.
of my flow and I found my people. The afternoon shift PSWs were a completely different breed of PSW. It's amazing how they're just such different breeds, right? Like we all are PSWs at the end of the day. We all stand together united, but we're all different types of personalities that work
Yes.
different shifts throughout the day in long-term care.
Then you're
Afternoon shift was
then you have
great.
your midnighters, and they're a different breed of
Midnight,
their
they're
own.
a
I did
whole
midnight.
different.
It's
I
so
know.
crazy how different it is, and how you have some, and it's like, I would never work a day shift in my life. And then you have those that I would never work a midnight shift, and then you have those where I would do nothing but only work midnights. And it's crazy because we all do the same job, but it's insane when you do all those different shifts, how different the flow is, how different the stress is. And yes, even if you are working short on an afternoon shift, say, it's just it's a different vibe. And it's hard to explain. It's obviously, if you are a PSW, if you understand what we're talking about, but it's hard to explain to those from the outside looking in,
Mhm.
just about how that dynamic works in long-term care.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because, like, don't get me wrong, we don't want it's not like we want to try and cut down everything. It's not like we're trying to be completely negative, but we're just bringing to the surface that it's all not all sunshine and rainbows. And
It's
yes, there's
not.
there's
It's
major
really not.
issues, and we
Yeah.
have to address it. Are the residents getting the care that they deserve? Yes, because if you are doing your job properly, you're walking into that room as if nothing has ever happened, and you are just a ray of sunshine in that resident's head. And that's what you're supposed to do. But
Yeah.
it's behind the scenes when you go for your break, when you go for your lunch, if you get one, that's when you have those breakdowns. That's when you have those, those moments to breathe. And sometimes you just have that emotional let go. And it's tough. It's tough to deal with even outside of long-term care in other settings as well.
Exactly, right. And I think that, we talk to PSWs on the regular, Nicole, you and I, Ian, Carly at the team, like we all speak to PSWs on the regular. And one of the things that we hear is that they just don't, they just don't feel like they have a voice
Yeah.
in their workplaces. Now they know OPSWA is their voice
Yeah.
when it comes to everything else, but in their workplaces, it's like the most amazing thing to me is they really truly do not think that they have a voice in their workplace. Where it be unionized or non-unionized, they don't think they have a voice because as soon as they, and this is what blows my mind, is as soon as they speak up, they stand up for themselves or their residents,
Yeah.
they automatically get kind of red flagged by the employer.
Yep. Because
And
we're not considered part of the interprofessional disciplinary team.
no,
It's a reality. I
yeah,
mean, it's just insane where, yeah, we have to do our separate charting, whether it be electronic, paper, however they do the charting, but it's not taken in the same context that the nurses or the OTA, PTA, anybody else on that team, it's not taken in the same way. And that's not acceptable. It's not
no,
acceptable.
no. And we actually just had a question come through. And the question is, how do you deal with a dementia patient causing sexual abuse to a PSW? I want to address this one and you can jump
Yeah,
into.
yeah, yeah,
But okay, so as one of the saddest things that I hear from PSWs, and when I was a PSW, this happened to me as well. We are constantly bombarded, especially depends upon where you work, but many times we are constantly bombarded by sexual harassment. It's just a thing that happens. I'm not excusing it. There is no excuse
no,
for this whatsoever. Whatsoever.
yeah,
Unfortunately, because of the fact that this has been going on for centuries, especially when it comes to dementia patients, people kind of just let it happen.
yeah, because
They
they don't
kind
know
of
what they're
excuse it.
doing. They don't understand. They don't have their mind. They'll forget in 2 minutes. They have a goldfish brain. It's excuses.
It's excuses. And if someone is sexually abusing a PSW, regardless, or anyone, regardless if they're a dementia patient or not, there needs to be accountability for that action. That PSW needs to be moved out of care with that dementia patient. It's definitely a balance of rights issue
Yes. Yep.
between the dementia patient and the PSW. And unfortunately, many times the dementia patient will trump the PSW's rights.
I have to say that I did see a case of this in the one long-term care home that I did work at. And I have to say, out of the long-term care homes that I've worked at over the years, there hasn't been many. I primarily did hospice and home care, but the one that I did work at, there was a case of this where it was a younger dementia patient. It was early onset dementia. I think they were in their late 50s, early 60s, and they were in the long-term care home. And there were instances reported of abuse, whether it was physical, sexual, verbal. They got VSO involved, and they really took it to heart. They ended up having a one-to-one security guard. Like they removed him from that floor. Like, I was very pleasantly surprised with the action that they took on that, but that's not the norm. That it should
It
be a
should be the
standard.
norm.
Yeah, it
It
should be the
should be the
norm.
norm. Yeah.
Because
Like I was
so
told
many
when I
times
worked
you're
as
just
a
like, "Oh, just be
PSW,
careful going into Mr. Jones's room. Just be careful because
right?
he's touchy. He's
Yeah,
touchy."
he's
No,
touchy.
that's not acceptable, like,
No,
whatsoever. And
no.
regardless if you're in this profession, if somebody touches you in a sexual nature, or even, you're walking by and somebody slaps your bottom, or that's not acceptable because it's not wanted. And it's not something that you should just laugh off and say, "Oh, don't be silly, Mr. Smith." No, it needs to be taken more seriously.
There are plenty of professional ways for you to say stop that.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
and there's a lot of ways that you can take measures in order to stop it from continuing to happen. I
Yep.
mean, I know when I was a PSW working in long-term care, this is going back years ago, but I can remember that I had this gentleman, I was leaning over in my scrub shirt,
Yeah.
and I had a tank top on, but I guess it was a bit loose. And I leaned
Yeah.
over and he stuck his hand in between my breasts and did this and thought it was hilarious. I didn't think it was hilarious,
No.
but when I took it to my DOC told me, oh, it's nothing. He does it all the time to the other girls. No, that's
Yeah.
not
Go
acceptable.
off.
No, it's unacceptable. So take it as far up as you possibly can. If you're not comfortable in any situation with any
Yeah.
patient, resident, or client, you have the right as a PSW to deny them care. You
Yeah.
do not have to do that situation. No,
You're
no,
not
but not,
forced.
can I say this though, but not like you don't want to go in because you don't like how he talks to you.
Yeah.
That's a, it's a very fine line because I can't tell you how many names I've been called is
Yeah.
still but so many names I get called working as a PSW. You just have to ignore it, you just have to placate it, and you just have to continue with your job. Now if they get grabby, if they get sexually harassing you, if they
Yeah.
get violent with you,
Yep. That's a
then you
different story.
have a right to deny care. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Take it as
Yeah.
far up as you possibly can and
I mean,
stand up for yourself.
I remember one of my first jobs, and I was a lot bigger when I first started as a PSW, and I already felt uncomfortable the way I was. And I remember walking down the hallway, and I would have this resident who was of sound mind, and he would follow behind me going boom boom to here comes the elephant. Yeah, he would follow behind me. I was mortified because some of the other, it was like people are staring at me, and it's like, you know what, I'm here trying to do my job, trying to be as positive as I can, and here's this guy that just thinks it's the funniest thing in the world, just taunting me like that. And I went as high as I could, and I got him sorted out. Like they came, they said, listen, you don't have the right to treat somebody like that. You don't, you might think it's funny, this and that, like you're not happy being here, but you don't take it out on people. And I was honest with him too. I said, what you're doing is not funny. I don't find it amusing at all. I find it really disgusting. And he kind of laughed it off, and but it wasn't until management finally did do something, and yeah, but it's like you deal with that on a daily basis, and it's like that's not, it's not needed, and it's not acceptable.
No, I think, and as a PSW, I mean, we work in a different realm. Let's be honest. Like this is a realm that society doesn't, a lot of them don't even know exists when it comes
Yep.
to our elderly. They don't know what happens inside the walls of these long-term care homes, retirement homes. They think everything is just, we're having a bit of, a spot a tay with, our
Yeah.
with Mrs. Smith or Mr. Smith and nothing else is going on.
Yeah.
One of the other things we hear about too are racist older people. That seems to be a massive issue in the PSW realm.
Yep.
And that is just that I hate to say that is
It's a generational
something
thing.
that is a generational thing and we
Yeah.
can't change their minds.
That's a
Now,
hard one. I mean,
yeah,
when it comes to, okay, judgmental on maybe their thoughts and feelings, like myself, full of tattoos, I used to get that. Some residents were absolutely fascinated by them, and they would color them in and draw them when I was, feeding them. Others would be like, "Oh, that's disgusting. You're a vile human being for having tattoos and this and that." It's another thing when it's, I don't want this person in here because they're of this race or this gender or this. That's a different thing because it could be generational. It could be, yes, you didn't see that as often when you were your age or in your time. But to blatantly refuse care from somebody because of their race or ethnicity, or that's a different.
get this, they don't have that right.
No.
They do
Nope.
not have that right to say who performs their care. They
Yeah.
do not have that right.
Yeah.
So know your rights. And I think what we're talking about a whole bunch of stuff here is know your rights as a PSW and know that you have rights as a PSW and that you should definitely enact those rights if
Yeah.
you if you need to do that. I
Employment
really want
standards.
PSWs to understand you
Yep,
guys are scared to lose your job because you talk out about abuse in your long-term care home. I'm going to tell you right now that if that abuse gets leaked and you have not reported it, you yourself can be held liable because you are a frontline healthcare worker. So
yep,
you need to really take that into account. And secondly, there's so many jobs that you can find as a PSW. Like there really are. There's a lot of avenues you can go into. You can go into entrepreneurial, retirement homes, long-term care, home care, working for the school board, working for group homes, working for community living. There's so many different avenues of work that you can do as a PSW. So the
yep,
last thing I want to hear from our PSWs is, well, I see massive abuse or my management treats me like crap and there's all this stuff going on. And then I say, well, why don't you leave? And
yep,
they say, oh, well, I can't leave the residence. Squawk. That's what I
yep,
call that. That's
yep,
squawk. I know that you love your residents. I did too. I
yep,
know that you care about them. You are not doing them a lick of favor if you are not reporting the crap that you are seeing in that home.
yep.
I said
Plain,
it.
plain and simple. You
I
you've
said
got to you've got to be part of the solution and not part of the problem, and not be concerned about the repercussions for that, because that's not going to help anybody, and it's just going to keep this constant thing happening, right? I know there's a big comment there that was
yeah, wow.
that
Okay.
you're reading
So
that.
what
Okay.
yeah, so it says what could have been done differently is often the phrase used when you fill in an incident report. Ridiculous is
Yeah.
what I say. Take it
It
up.
gets,
If
it gets
you've got
filed
a
away.
go to your union. Go to your union. If you don't have a union, come to us. That's what we're here for.
And
I
even
mean,
if you
many
have a union, if you have a union and they're not doing anything for you, then come to us.
yeah,
And make sure you write everything down. I was
yeah,
always told that as soon as
yeah.
something happens that you don't feel that was done right, or an incident happened, as soon as you can get your hands on a piece of paper and a pen, you write down everything that happened right from the beginning, and do it as soon as you can, because it will fade as you are telling the story to other people. But if you can get that on paper right away, give yourself a voice note, do something, but make note of it and do
Don't use
something about it.
residents' names, and whatever you do, do
Yeah.
not use full residents' names. Use the name, the number of their room.
Number. Yeah. Yeah.
Use
The floor
initials.
that they're on, the
Something like
initials.
that. Yeah, like never when you're documenting, like, so in a past life, I worked as a correctional officer and I always had those police notepads.
Yeah.
They fit perfectly in your scrubs. And I would recommend that every time that you do a resident, you write down point form what you did to that individual. Because I promise you, God forbid, there come a day when you get accused of something when that didn't happen. And you do not, also, too, is no matter how wonderful your colleagues are, and I hope that many of you guys have wonderful colleagues,
Yeah.
you are your own defense. So you
Yeah.
have to rely on yourself first before you can rely on anybody else. I mean, we always say PSWs eat their young. They do.
Yeah.
Absolutely they
Yeah.
do. So make sure that you take care of yourself first. And a part of that would be liability insurance, but I'm not going to get into that. But you really should, honest to God.
Yeah.
Like, you should protect yourself first. And also, too, never say never. Never say
Yeah.
never. Anything can happen to you as a PSW. Anything.
The
Um,
positive, like going from the negative to maybe the positive. I mean,
yeah,
obviously that's what we're trying to say. Not everything is negative. We're
no,
just trying to showcase and highlight the fact that it's there. And you see posts online from the long-term care homes or retirement homes, and they show all these social events and these happy residents and stuff, and that's one side of it. But we are letting you know that there is another side of it. There is a reality that isn't so positive and that could be negative. Yes, there are positive workplaces, there's positive
yeah,
teams, and those are amazing to work with, because you know that you're walking through those doors, and when you punch in, you know that you have that cohesive team, and you're just going to rock it. And are you going to be short staffed? Probably, because you are every day that you walk in. But
You
when you
got to make the best of it. Like
Yes,
an
if you make the
example,
best of it and positive, then you guys are gonna have the best shift. You're gonna flow off each other. Everybody's gonna get the best care. You're gonna leave that shift with a smile on your face and not tears in your eyes.
well, and when I used to do that because the long-term care home I worked at the longest was a very small long-term care home, but we were always short-staffed, and I was the bath nurse, quote unquote. So
Yeah,
I would have to bathe 8 residents every night on my shift,
yeah,
and it was daunting to say the least because it was a very heavy workload, a bit of a toxic work environment. But you know what I did for fun is I thought, you know what, at the end of the day, my job is not to necessarily make it fun for my colleagues and my management. It was to make it fun for my residents. And
yeah,
that's why I was there. And so I got a little radio and I brought in some like, the sensitive skin bubble bath from like when my
yeah,
son was really young. And I
yeah,
would put bubble bath in. I had oldies music on for one woman, another woman liked gospel, and then another a guy, he liked the Aerosmith and stuff like that. And
yeah,
so we just jammed it out in the tub room,
yeah,
and I mean, and that's I would leave after that shift feeling great because I
yeah,
mean they come into the bathroom smelling like watermelon. They
yeah.
absolutely loved it. And that's the way you got to look at it is how can I, as a professional, how can I make this experience the best it can be for my residents? At the end of the day, we always have to remember that they don't live in our workplace.
We work in
We
their
work
homes.
in their home. And
Yep.
so we have to respect that and keep our personal crap, for lack of better
At the
term,
door. You
at
leave it
the
at the
door.
door. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter what you're going through. As soon as you walk through that door, you're like a different person. I mean,
exactly.
I used to do nails. I used to set up Nicole's nail salon at the nurses station. And I did. I went down to the recreation department. I got all their supplies. I would set up a full nail salon at the nurses station, and all the residents would come over and get their nails painted. 5 minutes with
Yeah.
each resident, and you know how excited they were to do that and
Yeah.
how they felt like they just weren't sitting in a corner in their chair watching the TV for 6 hours. Like it
No,
just
I think
it
it's
gives them purpose.
exactly. And so for the PSWs that are watching this right now, I
Yeah,
would love to hear from you.
yeah,
Share some positive stories with us below. And if you have management that has gone above and beyond, I've heard many great stories about that. I heard a story this past weekend, blew my mind. I actually reconnected with an old, oh my God, she's gonna kill me for saying old, but a friend of mine, a colleague, a fellow student that I actually went to Mohawk College PSW program with.
a long
And
time ago.
a long time ago. We've known each other 20 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we were talking about it. She said the long-term care home that she just left after 19 years of being there, because now she's going private, is they never worked short. Their numbers are phenomenal. They have a DOC that like an assistant DOC that walks around to make sure that like wound care and all that stuff is on park. And
Yeah.
so there are long-term care homes out there that really do an excellent job
Yeah.
of caring for the residents and also giving two craps about the PSWs and the nurses, et cetera, that work there.
And same with retirement homes. I mean, a lot of retirement homes are becoming pseudo long-term care homes because they have care floors. And the
Yeah.
one that I worked at, it was an incredible team. We had an amazing team of PSWs. We knew our thing. We walked there in the morning. We knew exactly who we had to do. I would say, okay, you start there, we'll meet up and do this person together, do this person, then get them all down for breakfast. It was this cohesive team. But if we were working short, that nurse on our floor, damn straight, she would rush through her med or pause on things to help us do showers, to help us change a brief, to help us transfer. She would have no qualms whatsoever about putting those gloves on and getting down and dirty with us and not just stand at her med cart. And it was an amazing feeling because you didn't feel alone and you didn't feel overwhelmed because you knew you had that support. Even the PSW supervisor, she didn't have scrubs on, but she was a PSW. She was in a supervisor role. But if she had to come out and help us because we were short staffed, she had no problems with that. And that is so amazing to see because it's needed, and
And
that's
here's the
why
thing,
it's like,
Nicole, I never witnessed that.
yeah,
I've never witnessed that. In a decade and a bit more in long-term care, I never witnessed that, unfortunately. Now,
yeah,
I have family that are RPNs that work in long-term care, and I wish to God I had been able to work with them because they're phenomenal RPNs.
Yeah.
It's just, and maybe that's another topic for another, because we're about to hit a half an hour,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
another topic for another PSW podcast. But PSWs, as usual, we want to hear from you. What do
Yeah.
you want to hear from PSW podcast? What topics do you want us to talk about? What experts do you want us to bring on? At the end of the day, this is about you, but also sharing that vital information with the public as to how important PSWs are and to the realities of frontline, I want to say frontline healthcare in Ontario. So,
Yeah.
Nicole, as always, it's a pleasure having you, and I can talk forever
Yes.
and ever and
Yeah.
ever on all
We
this
have to
stuff.
stop ourselves. We don't
Yeah.
realize it.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just going to say thank you to everyone. Enjoy this weekend, working or not. Remember, Oxwood does see you. We
Yeah.
do appreciate the work that you guys do every single day. Not only do we appreciate it, but those in your care and their families truly appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you
Yeah.
for becoming the heartbeat of Ontario healthcare. And with that, I'm going to say,
Ops
Oxwood
one out.
out.